I've always loved running. I started when I was little, going on long distance runs with my dad and sprinting up and down our yard with my sisters timing me. By the time I hit high school, I was well on my way to being a track star. So, you can imagine my surprise sophomore year when the rankings for cross country came out and I was still on the JV team. I had let it slide my freshman year. Yeah, I'm not gonna make varsity as a 9th grader, but I had worked hard and it didn't matter if I was a sophomore. I just knew I deserved that varsity spot. And you know what stung even more? As I looked through who did make it, I saw the name of a girl who was way slower than me. She made it on the varsity roster. I was so frustrated and started to believe this isn't fair. I'm Jean, and I think sometimes life can feel like we're being gypped out of varsity. And it feels like it should be up to me who gets what. You know? We decide who deserves our kindness, who deserves our respect, who's earned our love based on what's fair. But then Jesus shows up and gives everyone grace. Everyone gets the same offer. And we're standing there wait a second, she didn't do her part, and neither did he. The idea that we should get to decide who deserves our love is not new. Jesus was so used to this type of thinking that he addressed it almost 2,000 years ago. In one of his most well-known sermons, he turned this thinking upside down. Let's check it out together. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 through 45, Jesus told his listeners, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." Okay, so what's important to know is that Jesus was speaking to everyday Joe Schmo people. Many of them were probably Jewish people living under the controlling and oppressive Roman government. On paper, it seemed like these people were totally valid in hating the enemies who were mistreating them. And they may have asked the same question you've wondered at some point. Shouldn't I get to decide who deserves my love? And shouldn't that decision be driven by what's fair? But that's not what Jesus said. Honestly, he said the opposite. While Jesus' listeners had heard one message from their culture, he had a different one for them. See, they had been told that they should love those who love them, but it was okay to hate anyone they thought was an enemy. But Jesus offered something different, something better. He not only told them to love their enemies, but he also commanded them to pray for those who persecuted them. Pray for those who are actively harming you and your family? Sounds like an impossible ask. Jesus said God shows his own love for his enemies, or those who don't love him, by providing sun and water for them. You might be thinking, wait, that's just like the basic needs to survive. But because God is powerful, he would have the ability to withhold these resources from those who don't worship him. But he doesn't do this. Instead, he provides for people who hate him. As followers of Jesus, our purpose is to do the same, loving those who don't reciprocate. When we do this, we live into our identity as God's children. That doesn't mean we have to prove ourselves or earn our place in God's family, but because we already are children of God, we can choose to be and act like our Father. At this point, you may be thinking, okay, but he's God. And isn't God supposed to be loving and kind and just? I can't be expected to be like God all the time, can I? And this doesn't really answer our question from earlier. Shouldn't I get to decide who deserves my love? I mean, it belongs to me, right? Let's keep going, because Jesus addresses this very tension in the next few verses. "For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect." Do you see what Jesus did here? He stated the question and the answer. He said that if they only loved those who loved them, or greeted those who were family, they were no different than those who don't know God. Jesus even went so far as to command them and us to be perfect, or holy, or set apart, as God is perfect, holy, and set apart. That may seem impossible to you to be perfect like God, and you're not wrong. But Jesus is calling us to reflect the heart and attitude of our Father and mirror the way we've received God's love. That is why we choose to love people we might even consider enemies. See, Jesus doesn't operate out of who deserves his love. And if he did, it would be really bad news for, well, everybody. The Bible talks about this undeserved love in the book of Romans, chapter 5, verses 8 through 10. It says, "But God proves his own love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. How much more then, since we have now been justified by his blood, will we be saved through him from wrath? For if, while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son, then how much more, having been reconciled, will we be saved by his life?" See, this tells us how it's possible for followers of Jesus to extend undeserved love to others, because Jesus did it first. While we were following our own way, Jesus decided to love us fully and to give his life for ours. Even when we were enemies, actively working against God, Jesus extended love. This radical, upside-down love changes us. And when we experience it, we want others to experience it too. Simply put, Jesus loved us when we were completely unlovable, when we were his enemy. As followers who have been given new life in him, we can show that same love to those that would be considered unworthy or undeserving. The truth is, when we're left to ourselves, we don't just make JV. We wouldn't even be invited to the tryouts. But with Jesus, he does all the work so we can be like him. While we were sinners, while we were at our worst, he loved us first. Everyone, no exceptions. And because he loved us first, we're called to love others the same way, even when it's hard, even when they haven't earned it. As we step into who God says we are, we learn to love like Jesus, with grace, humility, and forgiveness that points others to him. We don't have to wonder whether someone deserves love. Jesus decided it already.